Welcome, everyone. Here we are in the temple again with ancient music and koans and eternity, lots of eternity. Thank you, Michael. The wild time with the didge. So, welcome to Sunday Temple. I'm personally very glad to be here. I've been in far places. The didgeridoo has a reference which I'll give you later, but thank you, Michael. So nice to hear that. The didgeridoo is the primeval instrument, and it says nothing happens next. This is the universe. So here we are, and really good to be here. So I've been, you know, the legend is that the Buddha was, lounging around in his palace and got visited by four messengers from the gods, who actually were the gods in disguise. Uh, an old person, a sick person, a corpse, and someone following the path. So I definitely had a few visits from the divine messengers. And I've been, for those of you who don't know, I've been, a couple of weeks ago, I went into hospital and was there about 8 days and then came out. And so, it's not a tremendously severe thing, but it was very impressive to me. and, and somehow the thing I got from that was just the purity of the practice and the depth of the peace in the practice, in the midst of pain and difficulty and uncertainty. The mandala of the practice that goes out to the stars on the one hand and inward to the depths of the heart until you can't quite tell the difference. So that the sense of the hospital room being this sort of square mandala, and the ever-important toilet, which is part of the hospital room, and it was a remarkable experience, and I suppose as all experiences are, but this one was remarkable in its own way, and so what do I want to say about it? I think one of the things that I do, that the kingdom is at peace, and it's Easter Sunday too. Here we are, and the Easter Sunday, everything's, the leaves are coming out of Persephone's hands, everything's resurrecting after winter. And so very good. And I feel somewhat resurrected. I'm glad to be here. Somebody said to me, somebody sent me a note and said, well, I'm glad you're ready to teach again. And then I thought, what is ready? I'm not ready to teach. I'm just still really sick. And then I thought, well, I'll just have to tell the truth. That'll have to do. And I thought, well, isn't that teaching? Anyway, so what it is like to be human in the vastness and in the smallness of being human, something like that. And so what do I want to say here? That I think the thing about the mandala was so profoundly important when I was in the hospital room, and I was in a lot of pain. They couldn't really manage it that well. I mean, they could, and then they couldn't and stuff. And and so and so it was like, but consciousness was there, and at a certain stage, the peace doesn't. It's not about pain or not pain. It's a marvelous thing to realize there's nothing to be frightened of. There's nothing to dread. I can't know that, but still, depending on the pain scale, it gets impressive. So it's like it turns out, my knowledge of that can sometimes be affected by the pain scale. And it was sort of really nice, and the feeling of being in a temple in the hospital room. So, and with all the Gothic stuff the body can provide, that's what the divine message is about. How Gothic the body can be, how profoundly, in a way, disintegrated, and but then each little piece of consciousness is the universe. And I was reading this great thing came out. Somebody tracking one of the great telescopes came out with this peculiar reading, and so focused in on it. And so in this galaxy, there's this giant black hole that has escaped and got slung out by two other black holes, sort of domestic quarrel. And it's hurtling through the galaxy through this field of gas, and it digests the gas, and there's this little trail of stars. But the trail of stars is like, I don't know, the trail of stars is 200,000 light years long, something, some vast scale that we can't, we can't manage, we can't manage to comprehend, So that was kind of nice, and clearly that we have an incredible delight in infinity, and then inside is infinity too, and it's kind of marvelous. So I could feel all that in the hospital room, and the sense of peace, however long life lasts, and things like that. And there's a comic aspect too to it that I was, I had a bowel obstruction, which is this sort of not a modest thing, but it caused you tremendous pain. Apparently, it caused a lot of pain, and it's from old surgery scars, and so all you're doing is waiting there for your body to start working and hoping you can dodge the surgery, and and being at peace with that, One of the nice little novelistic details was at some stage, I think it was on the Sunday after I was admitted on a Friday, this like tall guy who looks like a big surfer, or it could be a quarterback or something, like, strong guy with a big Yeti trucker hat with the word Yeti written on it. And it's a ward where they only have N95 masks, which are the most secure ones. He's got a sort of surgical mask somewhat approximating his face, slung around his neck, and it's clear, oh, this must be the surgeon. And it was kind of fun. And he's a hearty person, so just felt me up and felt my body and stuff, and then they decided to take me in for surgery. And so then they started taking me, what's your directive? What if you don't come back? Who do we notify if you die? Things like that. It's just protocol, really. And so I'm all ready to go into surgery and all scrubbed up and cleaned, and then trauma helicopter came in, so that my surgery got kicked back because the surgeon was on some other much more urgent thing. And it was sort of, and so I'm just sitting there waiting, and Allison's with me, and then Riddle came in to sit with Allison while the surgery was happening, so Allison, would have company. And then The and so then and then my time, my surgeries kicked back an hour and a half or something, and then heard the transport cart in the corridor, and it locked up its wheels, and I thought, okay, here we go. And then suddenly I'm leaping to the bathroom, and Allison's trying to drag the drip line. The nurse is waving her hands, actually dancing, and suddenly I didn't have an obstruction anymore, and no need for the surgery. So it was rather one of those last minute sort of interventions of the gods, really. So there was sort of it's kind of the thing about being in hospital. Everything that was disgusting becomes precious, So so there was that, and I think the thing I ultimately just say about the fate of being human, which is stuff like this, stuff like this is just like part of life, right? And but in some way we're connected. That's what the Buddha story and meditation is. Some way we're connected to the vast project of awareness and consciousness. And it's not a small thing, that we would say the gods are interested in us and we're doing something for them. They want us to succeed too. And just what do we do? What are we here for? What are we up to? And there's something about, we do the things we do. We have breakfast, raise the kids, try to show how we're more special than the next person, the usual mammalian stuff. But there's something vast that we know we appreciate in each other. The generosity of the nurses, the generosity of the nurses was really profound, I thought. And having friends come in and realizing it's good to be accompanied, it doesn't have to be so heroic, things like that. But also the sense that we're always, everything we do. And so, I would raise my hand to put on a hospital gown, and I could feel the whole universe is raising its hand, and the gown's being held for me, and the whole universe is holding a gown for me. It's kind of nice, actually. That's really nice, and it's not related to whether we're in pain or not, or things like that. Yeah. And another like I guess is a kind of theory thing, really, but one can see how there's no, and we know this, but the consciousness is learning the same thing over and over again at a deeper level. Really. We know that we can't really assemble a self that will make all this coherent and manage it. We have to trust the universe, that we're out there in the universe like this, that vast star bridge, or inside in the archetypes of the mystery which are inside us. And we all that takes care of itself, no matter how smart or unsmart or virtuous or competent we are. We're expressions of that universe, and so good to know. But also we can't assemble somebody who manages all that and thinks about all that in an intelligent way. And somebody put that in the chat. What would it take to use our practice to blah blah? And that's the classic Zen. But actually, you can't. There's a great Tibetan saying that says, "Don't raise delusive thoughts." But if you have raised delusive thoughts, don't get rid of them. The Tibetans are so great like that. The chaos are us. Chaos is us too. And you find inside the leaves, the shards, that kind of thing. Inside the fragmentation of the universe, the whole universe is in every piece, every little roly-poly bug, every little spider that you rescue from the shower. The whole universe is in that, and the star bridge, and consciousness and the mystery. So I don't know. That's pretty cool. And I want to read like this. I just ran across this kind of cool thing, but the kingdom is at peace is a vast, true thing, and it's just sort of revealed over and over again. The the idea of the mandala being also rectangular rather than circular was really interesting to me at that time. It's sort of it's just a shape of containing mystery, really, containing the psyche, the deep psyche, and so I was very impressed by the notion of the mandala and the Indian people, I think, who basically thought it up. And it's something that goes out to the stars and into the stars. You know? So there's that, and the fact, and that tells us that, you know, we have a place in eternity, we have a place in the mystery, and that we can't describe it and we can't bring it to heal and make it work for us, but we can open ourselves to it and walk through it. And then even putting on a hospital gown is a perfect celebration of the mystery. Well, and the other sleeve won't ever go in easily, things like that. So it's rather, it's so wonderful. Oh, I'm raising my hand. Or even like if it gets more, I'm vomiting. The whole universe, the stars are coming out, you know. And it's sort of just the processes of the universe, like making stars, getting stars falling apart, you know. So there's that part of it. And then this other great thing I noticed was the feeling of intense participation with things. That I think is part of it. Once I'm not trying to hold together, you know, against the chaos, then everything's in us, and there's no, it's like the Tibetans say, there's no need to fix things, and there's no need to make the right narrative and have other people understand the right narrative. And that's a big thing mind does, right? You should understand me better. My parents didn't, but you can, whatever it is. And so we don't have to worry about all that. It's just unfolding and unfolding infinitely out of our hearts like the stars. And then I think there's this wonderful feeling of participation. A while ago I mentioned a friend who does, you know, whimsical things for his friends. Suddenly said, "Oh, you're interested in olive trees, aren't you?" I said, "Oh yeah, I like olive trees a lot." And he said, "Would you have room for an ancient olive tree?" So anyway, a month or so later, this huge truck appears with this vast tree that's one of the children of the first olive trees in the New World, and you know, a couple 100 years old probably, and you know, branches. It was never, you know, pruned in any orthodox way. Branches going everywhere, and huge Sevillano olives. So it comes in, and I thought, wow, this person has changed the garden. You know, it's like this is a cosmic. We're all cosmic beings with this person, and then a couple of friends sent me music, and I went out and played it to the tree, and it was awfully fun, and I felt like it was a way of welcoming the tree. And then I ran into, as I was after I got out of hospital, I was reading Chateaubriand, the memoirs from Beyond the Tomb, and he's a French, you know, marvelous French writer, and he's sort of an odd person because his stories aren't always reliable, but he's a sort of person of great integrity, I think, who was always in trouble politically. But when he was an aristocrat who fled the French Revolution so that he could keep his head. You know. And he said now he's retired to this refuge, this orchard, and he's just got some land, and he's just been planting his trees, and his trees are only as tall as him, but he talks to them and he knows them all personally. And he said, I read elegies, sonnets, and odes to them. I thought it's a natural. That's what I was doing with the olive tree, you know? And I thought, that's what we're here for in this life, to read poems to our trees and songs, sing to our trees. And there's not one of them I haven't cared for with my own hands. He says that I haven't relieved of a worm attached to its roots or a caterpillar clinging to its leaves. I know all of them by names like children. They are my family. And anyway, I thought you'd enjoy him. I just enjoyed that. And you can tell that we were all participating together. And it's a nice thing to know. We're all in it together. And the final thing I'll say, and then I'll stop and we'll meditate, is that I think we'll. I noticed, and I'm not the first person to notice this, that the good thing about having an episode of where you come, you're closer to the messengers, the great messengers, and is that the heart opens. And so for my, I've always thought that was a good thing, but I'm always discovering another way it can open. And I thought my heart was pretty open. Oh no, it wasn't. And that's part of the, I think, evolution of consciousness and transformation is the heart opening, and that there's no, it's like the star bridges. There's no barrier between thou and I, between the universe and this consciousness and any consciousness. And I must say that's a tremendously cheering, the nakedness of that and the vulnerability of that and the delight of that is a tremendously cheering thing, the heart opening. Nothing can be done about how much we love life and love each other in the world, and how nice it is to take away the barriers and not be managing what people say and managing what I feel and things like that. And then that's when, I put on the hospital gown and the star bridges are there, or I just look in the eyes of someone I love and the whole of the universe is there. So thank you for your patience. I think we should sit now. And we'll sit with, the idea of peace is so profound in the Cardin tradition. So the 4 C's and the 5 lakes, which means, in the vastness of the world, Chinese cosmology, are under the rule of the king and queen. It's a great line in poem in the Book of Serenity. And the kingdom is at peace. So here we are, we'll sit. The ancient temple bell, feeling the time, feeling this in this hemisphere, feeling the spring. Not everyone's in this hemisphere. Things like ritual and the bell, they assemble the universe. The mystery appears through them, They're in some way friends of the mystery. The sound of wild geese going overhead is like that. The kingdom is at peace. The 4 C's, the 5 lakes, under the rule of the queen and the king. Great peace is a koan all by itself. Great peace. Where is that located? You lift your arm and you put it in your shirt. Great peace. Great peace. Great Yun Men said, it's important that the world be at peace. If you can see the peace in everything you do. Well, you don't have to see it, you can just feel it. It is expressing itself through you. Which is pretty cool if you think about it. Just saying. The dopiest thing you do is also an expression of the great peace of the mystery, emanating from the star bridges. Nice to have, you know. The old saying says, nice work when you can get it. The kingdom is at peace. And where do you look for it? We could start by looking in our own hearts. The kingdom is at peace, without rejecting anything that appears. If we are not unkind to anything the heart presents, that's a good thing. The kingdom is already at peace. So if you're meditating on this, just try meditating not just a little bit less hard. One of the great old Tibetan teachers said, enjoy yourself. Meditation too is your life. If we meditate a little bit less hard, then those star bridges might be able to help us. The kingdom is at peace. One of the things you notice is as this deepens, you don't have to do anything to bring that about. You're in it. It's here. You can't. Reaching for it is not necessary. It's already here in the mandala. You're in the mandala already. The kingdom is at peace. Good enough. That'll have to do for us as human beings. The vastness is here, and we're doing our best to, the other things. Eat breakfast and be kind. I think the thing about, what are we here for, though? And we're here under the blessing of eternity and the mystery. It's really important. And so that the notion of the bodhisattva path, that we really, if we can help others across to the other shore, it's a really important thing. And a nice thing. that uh, there's nothing in this world we can accomplish or do that we can take with us when we leave. But if we have that feeling of being, that's the fourth of the heavenly messengers, the being who turns her head or his head towards awakening and tries to help others in that direction. It's a significant thing, you know. It's not nothing. And you don't have to do too much about it. You just turn the horse's head a little bit. You know? You can't drag the horse to the barn. And you don't know where the barn is for them anyway. So just, you know, but we can feel that with ourselves. Just don't think this isn't it. Thinking this can't be it, that's the definition of suffering. So this is it. The kingdom is at peace. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in a hospital ward doing something and your body's doing something gothic that you don't approve of, you do approve of it. This is it. It's in the kingdom of peace. Like my body's been a drama queen recently, I think. But I can't disapprove of that. You know, it's like it's my body's. That's the business of the universe, not mine. So there we are. The kingdom is at peace, and we know the bright moments and the painful moments don't really cancel each other. The brightness is in all of them, and sometimes we privilege the painful moments and say, well, they just, you know, they what? But actually, no. If you enter, well, the other great koans about the kingdom being at peace is enter here. If you enter here, you'll always find the vastness, the brightness, the star bridge, the heart that is in love with everything that occurs. The little sparrows trying to get fat enough to go to Alaska here and hoping they'll make it in time. And all of that out there, the leaves shooting up. The frogs are dancing now. The frogs are, you know, it's been a hard drought for the frogs, and they've been thinking, every year we lose our children. It's so sad. And this year they're singing at night and singing. They're singing, our children will live. They're singing, we're going to have sex. And the frogs are saying, there'll be lots and lots of frogs. And indeed there will. And I feel their joy. And the woodpeckers are all happy, banging away. One of the quirks of the hospital room, there was a very old little little mechanism in the electrolyte drip, had a sort of tock, 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 tock sound. One part of its cycle, it was like there was a tiny little woodpecker in it. And I didn't ever not feel joy when I noticed that. An old piece of equipment. And the morning doves. The blue sky, the brightness of the clarity of the life. And you can tell how you can't really get away from meditation. It's all meditation. It's all the kindness of the universe, the kindness of the mystery. We can't explain it, but we can enter it, and then suddenly putting on our clothes and it's there, you know, we're cooking toast, we're helping a child and it's there, or we're feeling sorrow and it's there. Good enough, you know, good enough for this life. And then if we can, we, you know, I don't know, help others, you know, not the worst thing. So what really happens when we stop meditating, eh? The kingdom is still at peace. The kingdom at peace is not about doing something with your mind. It's about, the vastness that's here and there. So I'm going to ask a few friends. I probably should ask Allison first, since she was the main victim of my body being a drama queen. So.
I think I want to come back to the hours preceding your surgery, when in the morning the young surgeon who came in and announced that would happen. And then there was this solemn feeling of approach and a sense of like having the whole week, but particularly that day, having my hands and my cheek laid right up against this huge breathing beast, which is life itself, and the great forces and mystery, and how we didn't know what would happen. We didn't know if, as you say, when the nurse comes in and she says, well, do you have your medical directive and your will and your, these questions they ask you, which when she came in, our nurse, who we adored, Zoe, our favorite nurse, and she asked those questions, I could tell both she had the capacity to hold the solemnity and gravity of the questions themselves. And she wasn't turning away from them. I could feel her allowing us to have what those questions were. And so she could stay with us as those questions filled the space of the room. And over and over again during that week, the feeling of entirely having the quality of my whole being catching up against the reality of the situation I was in, no matter if it were John throwing up and in terrible pain, and not being able to stop that. I think it's one thing to be in terrible pain yourself. I think only once in my life was I ever in that kind of excruciating pain, and that was in childbirth. And when you're with someone you love and they're in pain like that, you can't stop it, that what I could do was to be with him and not turn away and not try to fix it and not leave him for my idea of what could or should or I want to have happen, but to stay entirely with him with my, cheek and hands resting against the pain and the trouble and the not knowing how or where it would go. And that one moment in particular, when we're waiting for the surgery, where I could feel my mind, that question of John might not make it through surgery, that's a real question. And that's a real question for all of you right now, every moment. We don't know when our lives will end. And our face is always up against it. And it's such a beautiful feeling to have it right there, and with the intimacy that comes with letting that portion of reality be here. And to feel that in some way, no matter what reality was going to appear in the next moment, that John and I would be able to meet it. We would be able to meet it with each other and stay with each other, no matter what occurred. And so to say that, it's easy to say that, oh God, thank God that week is over. It was the most, in a way, sort of compression of my psyche that I may have ever endured for such a duration of time as well. And you know, the way hospital rooms are hermetically sealed, you have actually a window, but there's no way you can open it. And there's this desperate feeling to breathe some fresh air and the desire to just, you know, take a piece of furniture and just hurl it through the window so you can breathe the air again and somehow enter life. But it seemed right that we couldn't. We were in some kind of process of transformation, that the window that wouldn't open was an important part of it. There was no escaping what was going on. And to say, I can truthfully say that there isn't any moment of the terrible and marvelous and strange and awe-filled week that I wouldn't want to have happened. There's nothing I wouldn't have want to have lived through. It's so tremendous to live through that. And every moment of one's life is not to get to the good moments and to get away from the trouble, but to put our hands and face right up against the moment we're in. So that's the report from the tiger.
Somebody just said something great. They said, Bardo. And thanks. It's a Bardo. That's the between world where you don't know. Is it this life, next life, in between? Hospital rooms are Bardos. Thank you, Allison. It was really sweet having you accompany me. What else do we want to do here? I'll come back to some other people who've been closely involved with this sort of thing, but I wanted to. Here she is. I'm wondering how things are in Tasmania, so I'm going to ask Angela Raquel. Angela has to get up like well before dawn to be here from southern Tasmania, down in the roaring 40s. So, what's the report from the roaring? What's great peace in the roaring 40s, Angela?
Great peace here is snow on the first snow on the mountains, and big winds from the south, and the whole Southern Ocean and the island and the Tasman and right up into Bass Strait, just speckled with that freezing cloud up off from the Antarctic. So really a feeling of autumn coming, winter coming. And yeah, so thanks for your report from the universe, and very good to see you back. And yeah, just thinking about how everything we do, really, sitting or walking or doing what we do, is speaking and singing to the world, to, for, by, with, from the world. So just that. Thanks.
Thanks, Angela. I always like your fire. It's nice to. You're gonna need it more as the season turns. Yeah. Thank you, um, Tess Beasley.
Great piece here today is that the turkeys are mating, and there's been this whole elaborate ritual going on down in the field where a couple of the females have been rolling very elaborately in the dirt, and as they do that, the male sort of fans his, but if he gets caught, then he gets shy and sort of puts it away, and they continue their dirt bathing, and this has been going on for, I don't know, a couple hours. But I was thinking, listening to both you and listening to everyone so far, it's incredibly moving. But the thing I've been thinking about is how much we're accompanying and accompanied that we don't even know half the time. Like that thing you said about the guy who has the elegies and the odes for his trees and how he knows every little bug and their friends that he's been. Yesterday, we went shopping for some trees to kind of fill out part of our very sparse yard with big trees. And it was almost like, first it was almost like going to the animal shelter where you just want to take everything home because it's so cute and beautiful and you just want to grab as many as you can. But when you realize you probably can't do that, the more I walked around, this particular place had a lot of more trees that were several years old, and they were all clumped together. And the thing that started to dawn on me was people have been caring for these for years as they've been just sitting here kind of waiting and growing and getting beautiful and strong and being shaped. And that in a way, I'll never know who those caretakers are, but they've made these beautiful, companions that now after the meditation today, I'll get to go walk around and see, where does each one want to be, and how, even when you were so sick, several of us would light candles and incense for you, and all of us would sit here in the temple, and it's like all the ways that we're with each other and holding each other are being held that we know and we don't know, and it's just something quite touching about that. The nurses and the people who draw up the injections and the people who prep the surgical tables and the people who scrub the toilets and the people, it's like, it just goes on and on and on. The people who make the surgical knives, it just goes on and on and on. So that's the kingdom is at peace here today. That's good.
Thanks, Tess. Michelle Riddle was actually in the. This funny thing happened where a friend was kind of careless and visited us while infected with COVID and infected us. We didn't know that. And then suddenly Allison came down with COVID and we thought, shit. And so suddenly I got a room to myself, which was actually great. But I also got, and then I became infected. Michelle came in to look after, and then she became infected. So it was like, it's amazing. The current crop, as some of your physicians know, amazingly infectious, but not that dramatic, It was just like, anyway, it was just part of the general comedy of the whole totality of the whole thing. So it somehow goes with those turkeys rolling around in the dirt and things, But down in the canyon here, sometimes, you're going down the canyon, all the trucks are stopped and everything's stopped both ways. And there's a turkey displaying in the middle of the road, and the girls are looking around and watching and assessing. I don't know, would you have babies with him? It's kind of funny. So the world goes on in this magnificent way. I think Michelle Riddle.
Thank you.
She
I'm not a co-host or whatever, so
Oh, I thought you were.
I
Sorry.
couldn't do it without your help. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. What do I want to say? The thing you were saying earlier, John, about don't think this isn't it. I often think that for me, there's hardly anything to say besides that. And the hospital, John, you started to talk about that sense of the experience of being able to accompany the two of you to some extent while you went through all that you went through in the last little bit was really interesting to me. And it had very much a quality for me of both of being carried and also of being part of what was happening without understanding it. What do I want to say about it? One thing that was just funny was that experience of like good news, bad news, good news, bad news, like the sort of traditional Zen stories, like Hakuin, like, or somebody's like, oh, so, whatever, John's in the hospital, that's bad news. And then, well, they're getting a private room, that's good news. He's going to go maybe have to have surgery, he's in terrible pain, that's bad news. Oh, now he doesn't have surgery, that's great news, he's doing really well. Oh, now he's really, really sick. Oh, now Allison has COVID. Now, and it was just sort of like back and forth and back and forth. It made it hard to even give a report. It's like I wanted to, because I had the sort of privilege of being this, I was close to the situation and I knew how much love was out there for them and for John. And I wanted to be able to say, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And it was sort of impossible. And it had these like weird, strange things. Like John mentioned the thing about COVID and Allison got COVID and she went home and she tested and her sister came to help take care of her. And so I didn't have COVID. So I was able to go in and be with John. And I noticed at one point looking at the screen, it said but that has all of John's health information. It said something like possibly exposed to COVID, concern about COVID very low. And so there was this sort of strange idea in the hospital room that John didn't have COVID. And even though they had this private room, which was very nice, and I too was blind to this idea that maybe John had COVID. It was like some secret veil had come down over the hospital room. And so they would take his vitals all the time. And I had this idea, well, if he doesn't have a temperature, he doesn't have a sore throat, he's whatever, he doesn't have COVID. And I don't know how it might have been different if someone decided to test him for COVID, but in retrospect, he probably had COVID and it was just one other thing on top. He was in so much pain. It's like you couldn't say, oh, it's COVID, it's not COVID. And maybe if we'd known he had COVID, maybe I wouldn't have been able to be there. And I don't know, because I don't know what's good or what's bad, but it had that, like John just said, this thing, like even the dopey things we do, they're part of it. And I could feel it was dopey to not test John for COVID, but it was part of the whole thing and part of the whole, and I don't know, for me, as you can feel, it's like the whole experience, I tried to tell some people about it. It had this feeling of being utterly unengineerable. Like nobody could have made a choice about any piece of it. And I felt that so strongly in a way that's almost difficult to convey, but because it's not just there, but it was like a petri dish where I could see so clearly that. And all I could do is just be part of it and reach out. And even this idea of helping others, you don't really know. This is kind of like what Tess was saying. I don't know what's helpful. I could try. And then I have to let it go and just not say this is not it. So thanks for the time.
Thanks, Michelle. And the short form is that, Allison got COVID and went home, and then eventually they tested me, and they didn't tell me they just said, I assumed I was negative, and somebody said, well, you've got COVID. And then Michelle got COVID. And Michelle's house, she's moving house, and and so she ended up quarantining with us at our house. And so it's been a long association. It's kind of nice to have company. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we're going to meditate a little more. When in doubt, the mystery will help. The kingdom is at peace. You know what you do with the koan is really its own little piece of the universe that contains the universe. So you just keep company with it and see how it changes your heart and opens your heart. The kingdom is at peace. And I think the thing, I guess, not to find fault with anything that arises in the heart. In some way we find that the mysterious quality, the mystery, we feel looked after and taken care of no matter where things go, and everybody is wonderful, Like in the hospital, the surgeon was wonderful, I kind of really like those cowboy surgeons, and have some familiarity with them. And afterwards I said to him, when he came to check again, and I wasn't sure it was that dangerous actually, but you don't know. And I said, is that a heart surgery? He said, yes. He was just I don't know if it always is, but considering my condition, so I thought, no. Good, I didn't have it. So it was kind of fun. So I enjoyed him and the nurses. And the nurse in charge was really annoyed at having to, get everybody out of my room so I wouldn't infect them and things like that. So everybody was perfect. The birds. Great peace is here, isn't it? You can, if you stop reaching somewhere for it, or think I need to adjust my mind or hold my mouth right, you feel, oh, what I'm wanting, it's here, life. The fullness of being is here. There's no other fullness of being anywhere else but here. Each meditation is our final chance for experiencing eternity. Fortunately, there's another final moment right now. The vastness, the eternal, the kingdom is at peace. I have the feeling, I don't know actually, but I haven't tested today, but I have a feeling that, in a few days we'll clear protocols. Quarantine will end, and that funny thought came to me. Pretty soon we'll have to leave this beautiful quarantine. The golden quarantine. The birds singing outside, sparrows. I have time for a couple of brief comments, and I wondered if, John Joseph, do you have anything to say?
I don't. I just really, I just feel so much warmth towards you and your return and your caregivers and the stories. And Michael's playing was just lovely. And also to the great horned owls who have returned on my late night dog walks. So, yeah, nice to have you there.
Thanks, John. Great horned owls, they're like the temple bell, the ancient sound that constitutes eternity. Jesse Cardin, anything to say?
Yeah, it's wonderful to see you again, and good to have you back. And my the kingdom at peace right now is living with my in-laws, who I was really dreading having to live with for a month. And it turns out it's like this. I discovered the koan for this period is stop the war, and it turns out that actually it's this kind of gorgeous experience of living in the middle of this family that's very different from the family I've ever lived with. Everybody's always shooting at each other, and it's actually so I've started shooting too, and it's actually quite a bit of fun. That's it. It's a piece.
Thank you very much. Amaryllis, I don't know how we're getting out of here, but we've got music, and I think Jordan, we've got McConnell, wonderful Jordan McConnell is here. So do things with us. Thank you, Jordan, and thank you, everyone. If you want to find out about events and stuff, pacificzen.org. Want to give us money? It makes us delirious. It's wonderful. Um, pacificzen.org. And I think Tess, I don't know, I think I'm not here next week. We're having a leadership training with about 60 odd people. So next week, we're just shutting down, and we trust you next week to be good meditators.